During his 34 years in the Army, Stanley McChrystal began each day with a run.
That's the losers over there.
Now corporate executives pay good money to jog with him along the National Mall for a lesson in leadership.
Take yourself to May of 1860.
From Thomas Jefferson to Abraham Lincoln, who had famously difficult dealings with his generals.
Lincoln was very involved with his generals, in some cases early in the war, too much so.
McChrystal had difficult dealings with his own commander-in-chief, Barack Obama, and had to resign as commander in Afghanistan. But it would be unfair to remember him only for that, because McChrystal was the man who transformed the Joint Special Operations Command into the organization that killed the two most notorious terrorists of the 21st century, Osama bin Laden and Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, the shockingly ruthless leader of the insurgency in Iraq.
People would say, we got to fight the war on terror. I'd say, forget that. We got to win the war on terror, so you got to do whatever it takes to actually bring this thing to a successful conclusion.
In Iraq, McChrystal found out it wasn't enough just to send commando teams on nighttime raids to kill or capture terrorists.
As the violence was rising and we would do operation after operation, very good operations, they would still see the situation deteriorating.
For all their military skills, they were not tapping into the power of information.
They'd take a bag and they'd put the things they had captured, documents, computers, phones, or whatever, and then send that back with a little note on it, basically. And when I went to look at some of our facilities, I found a room where those bags had just been stacked in there, and they weren't being translated, they weren't being exploited, because we just didn't have the manpower, the expertise.
So McChrystal committed the heresy of bringing outsiders into the world of special operations.
I would go into rooms and I'd see big commandos sitting across from 22-year-old female intelligence analysts, and the commandos just sitting quietly as the analyst was the expert. Or I saw young men, civilian young men, come out and they'd have pierced things all over their faces, which was counter to the culture of the special operators, but they brought expertise and equivalent passion. They cared just as much as the operators.
Within 2 years, the number of nighttime raids, and with it the amount of intelligence exploited, climbed from 18 a month to over 300.
We started as a bookshop, and by the time we were up and completely built into a network, we were Amazon.com. And our real strength was this network that moved information.
McChrystal's network was clawing at Zarqawi's network, capturing and killing his lieutenants.
You had to kill a lot of people in order to finally get to Zarqawi. Did you ever wonder if you were losing your humanity?
I think every soldier has to ask themselves that. The danger of the operators drawing the conclusion that anything is worth to stop Zarqawi is a natural conclusion. But it's a dangerous conclusion, because once you step away from your humanity, then I'm not sure where you are.
Did you have any cases where soldiers were mistreating the bad guys they captured?
We did.
It happened when they picked up a truck driver who knew where Zarqawi was.
Some of the operators that worked for me mistreated the detainee. They touched him with a taser several times. We found out about it. We punished all four. However well-intentioned it was, you can't let it happen.
Did the guy in the truck give you a lead to Zarqawi after he'd been tased?
No.
They finally found Zarqawi by following his spiritual advisor to a house where the terrorist leader was staying. McChrystal called in an airstrike.
I had every expectation that his wife and children were there with him.
Getting him was just worth the price of killing innocents.
This was a man who had not only personally been involved in killing, but had literally precipitated thousands and thousands of deaths in Iraq. His cruelty en masse was stunning. It was so necessary to stop him, I didn't hesitate.
McChrystal spent nearly 5 years in Iraq working out of this plywood headquarters.
Bill, how are you?
His next combat tour was as top commander in Afghanistan.
You were the 12th American to take command in Afghanistan in, what, 8 years? What does that say about the way we were fighting that war?
I think it says a lot. Because Iraq had been the main effort or the priority for the American military for a number of years, in fact, Afghanistan had been very sparsely resourced with talent, with numbers, with technology, and whatnot.
Except guys were getting killed.
Well, that's the issue.
He convinced President Obama to send in 30,000 more troops. But as McChrystal writes in his memoir, My Share of the Task, there was an unfortunate deficit of trust between the military and a White House wary of being dragged into a Vietnam-like quagmire.
This must be a really big deal, not having trust between commander in the field and the commander-in-chief.
It's a challenge. While I think the relationships were positive, and I think the relationships were professional, they had not yet grown into the kind of trust that allows you to make extraordinarily difficult decisions, often under time pressures.
Then Rolling Stone published The Runaway General, depicting McChrystal and his closest aides trash-talking their civilian leaders.
I was awakened about, I think it was 2 in the morning, and I was told there was a problem, that the Rolling Stone article was about to come out, and it was bad.
What'd you think?
I was completely surprised.
McChrystal and his wife Annie had been celebrating their 33rd anniversary while on a trip to Paris to brief French officials on Afghanistan. They had invited the Rolling Stone reporter, Michael Hastings, to join them for late-night drinks with McChrystal's staff.
That evening when Stan and I were getting ready for bed, I said to him, I said, wow, I am so glad the reporter saw that evening and got to see what I saw was just this amazing group of men have been serving together for so many years and in this fight for so many years, and that kind of connection they all had to each other.
But the anonymous quotes attributed to McChrystal's staff were devastating, including one about a meeting with President Obama. The boss was pretty disappointed.
My whole life I'd expected that I could get killed in war. In my wildest dreams, I never once thought I could be accused of anything approaching disloyalty or disrespect.
McChrystal was recalled to Washington to meet with the president face to face.
What do you say to your staff?
That they didn't fail. You owe that to them.
Did you feel like you had failed them?
Almost by definition in my heart, I failed them. And almost by definition in my heart, I failed in my mission because I didn't stay to finish it.
You go to the White House to meet with the president.
I told the president that I would support any decision he made if he wanted me to go back or if he wanted to accept my resignation, which I carried with me.
The president accepted your resignation.
Correct.
And then you go home.
I'd been a soldier, an officer, for more than 34 years. And now at 55, in an instant, all of that has changed. I'm not a soldier. And everything that I think I am and everything that I had tried to be is at least in question. There was a girl in that house that had been married to me for over 33 years who I thought I might have let down.
What he said to me was, it's over. And without even thinking, I said, good. We've always been happy. We're always going to be happy.
9 months after McChrystal left the Army, the Joint Special Operations Command, which he had transformed into the Amazon.com of killing, finally got bin Laden. In his company offices, he has a flag the raiders took with them on that mission and later presented to him.
A lifetime of relationships were built and mean a lot to me.
Somebody who knows you well told us, don't let him fool you. He's got a hole in his heart. He'll never be the same.
I would be dishonest to say that I didn't lose something that meant an awful lot to me. I'd be dishonest to say that it doesn't still hurt.